don't take advice from people who aren't doing what you're doing.
Oh, man in the arena.
Yeah, it's just like, it's so smart because like I know everyone in my life is so well intentioned and they mean well for me, but like when I was first starting off, they were so scared that I wanted to be my own business owner and not fall into the norm of like getting a 9-to-5 and having a boss and stuff like that. And like I remember my parents being like, you're gonna have to work really hard, like you're gonna have to like set aside money for savings and you're gonna have to pay for your own health insurance. And they're very well intentioned in their fears. And
so now that you've made it,
and they're so proud, like they're so proud and they're so amazed, but like
well, we're live.
Awesome.
Victoria, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We were talking about earlier, but like I don't remember how I stumbled upon your page, but I do follow a lot of wedding photographers, and coincidentally, I just completed my first wedding this last weekend in Milwaukee.
I know. Congrats.
So this episode is kind of for selfish reasons, actually.
Well, I'm happy to be here. It's selfish on my part too. So.
And the way most episodes go, it's kind of like a chronological story of your journey, and it'll end with the things you do to cultivate a sense of fulfillment in your industry. So to give people some background, you're a Chicago wedding photographer.
Yeah.
Can you bring it back to the beginning and share where in the photography realm you started and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I probably picked up my first, I always had like a point and shoot camera growing up. I think my cousins gave me like my first point and shoot camera. And I don't know, I was like, 2000s, early 2000s teenagers would do. We would take mirror pics and like the pictures that are totally on the angles of the camera and stuff like that. But I didn't actually think of photography as like this serious thing until I was actually 13, and my middle school art teacher like assigned us this project to pick a career in art and just like run with it. So it was very open-ended. A lot of people chose photography thinking it would be so easy instead of like making a painting or other things like that. Yeah. They just had to take some photos and print them out and put them on a poster board. Sure. And meanwhile, like I was actually pretty interested in photography. So I took out my little point and shoot and I started photographing all of these different types of photography, like landscape and I don't know, models and whatever, but it was nothing like, it was just like middle school art, right? But she was the first teacher that actually told me that I could make a career out of being a photographer. And I just like remember hearing that and it like sparked something in me. And my dad was actually also very interested in photography around the same time as I was like discovering this. And he kept asking me, he's like, is this something you want to do? Do you think you're going to take classes in high school, stuff like that? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, Dad, like leave me alone. And turns out that my parents got me a camera, like my first DSLR. Oh, I know, for
in high school.
My middle school graduation, like going into high school. So very, very fortunate. I am very supported by my parents overall. But yeah, they got me like my first, it was like Canon, Rebel T1i. So like super old now, but like it was amazing.
You still have it?
Actually, no, I broke it. It fell off the tripod when I was doing self-portraits in college. So I had to upgrade. Loved the camera though. But then I went on to take some classes in high school. I did a lot of film photography in high school and in college. And then I actually went into thinking I was going to be more of a painter when I was going into college. My sister is also very much in the arts, and she's an art teacher right now. And she went to Illinois State University to go to art education, as they have a really good education program. And I was like, yeah, I'm 17. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know where I want to go. Like, that sounds good. I'm just going to go to ISU too. I'm going to follow my sister's footsteps and be an art teacher. And within one semester, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be an art teacher. I don't, as much as I love kids, I don't think I could go to school every day and deal with like just bratty little kids all day.
Okay.
So yeah, I quickly realized that was not for me. And I took my first film class in college. It was my second semester, and I just like remembered how much I loved all of it. And yeah, so I switched my major over to photography. And from there, oh God, it went from so many ideas bouncing in my head, like how am I going to make a career out of this?
Yeah.
So it started off with, I think I want to be a wildlife and like travel photographer. And I do think a lot of photographers actually kind of start off thinking this way because they see like Nat Geo and all of these beautiful.
Well, there's something appealing about travel.
And totally.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I get paid to travel. Amazing. So yeah, there's definitely an appeal to it. And I took a wildlife course out in Yellowstone.
Oh, what?
I know. It was amazing. I loved it, but I quickly realized it was not for me. So with wildlife and like nature and landscapes and stuff like that, it's a lot of alone time.
Gotcha.
It's a lot of being quiet and waiting in one spot. And me with extreme ADHD, that is not for me at all. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm kind of bored sitting in this one spot waiting for a bear to walk by, like maybe. And they did, and we got photos of them, and it was really cool, and it was happening, but it was a lot of waiting around for that one really cool moment. And even then, like, my teacher out there was like explaining to me how hard it is to like make money doing this, because like you pay for your trips on your own dime, you pay for your accommodation on your own dime, and then maybe you sell one photo for $2,000. Amazing. No, not really, because your flight was like $3,000 to Africa or something like that.
Yeah.
So
you're still at a loss. Okay.
Yeah. So obviously with anything you can make money out of it, and there's just a lot of hustle that has to like come behind it. But I think there's also a lot of love that needs to be behind it. And as much as I love traveling and animals and that sort of thing, I love people a lot more. I like making connections. So, yeah, that was the death of that dream for me. I love traveling on my own, but I will not be doing it for work. Or at least photographing it for work.
And you were in the middle of college during this trip?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I was like a sophomore in college.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. Or like going into junior year, I think.
How'd you even come across this opportunity?
I just started researching online.
Wow.
I was like wildlife photography workshops. And I'm very much a person that needs to be taught things. Like I'm not a YouTube learner. I'm not an online learner type of thing. I need to be like
hands-on.
Yes. Yeah. Hands-on with somebody like teaching me their ways of doing things. And then me maybe like striving from that and like learning my own way of doing
some foundation, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So like, that's why I very much believe in workshops and stuff like that, just because I know that that's the kind of learner that I am. So yeah, I went on Google and just started Googling stuff, and I found this teacher that does some in Alaska and Yellowstone and Costa Rica, that kind of stuff. And I was like, I could make I think it was like a spring break trip out to Yellowstone to do this. And it was very informative, and I think I learned a lot about myself in that trip.
Sure.
Yeah, and I learned I just didn't want to do
That's amazing. When most people would probably go down to Florida or wherever and just like kick off spring break there, and you're like, no, I'm going to hang with the bears.
Yeah, I also grew up traveling like a lot, so I've been to a lot of different places and kind of fell in love with that aspect of traveling, and that's also why I thought like that was a good fit for me in the end. But
So you realized you gravitate towards people.
Yes.
So were there any other workshops that came after that, or like how did you start going into that world?
Yeah, so then I was actually still kind of at a loss, not totally sure what I wanted to do with my degree that I was earning.
And was it a specific degree or just photography?
Yeah, no, so I actually applied, I think my sophomore year, so kind of a formative year that year. But it was my sophomore year going into junior year of college. I applied to the BFA program, which was the Bachelor of Fine Arts versus getting like a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor's in Science. So it was just way more art focused than it was in the other like language or science realms. So yeah, it was within my art program already, and you had to like apply into it, and you had to do a portfolio review and an essay and some other stuff that I honestly can't remember right now. Sure. But it was kind of a big deal, and I love fine art photography. I love fine arts in general. All of my projects that I did in college, a lot of them were mixed media based, whether it's like photography and I sewed on top of my canvases like with photos. I was very experimental in my dark room and developing in film stuff. So I really loved experimenting in art. So I kind of started falling in love with fine art. And it's interesting because as much as I loved my education at Illinois State, I feel like the program based a huge amount of fine art focus instead of like practical world focus on art, you know, like how to be a successful artist after you graduate.
Yeah.
And they taught you ways to do that as a fine artist, to like apply to residencies and stuff like that, but not as like commercial stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I
wonder
applied.
if there's like a grad program for that.
I
mean, it would have been ideal to see it in undergrad, right? But
right.
I don't know, maybe.
And there probably is.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like, as a painter, you have to be like kind of a fine art painter or something like that, right? Or like, I don't know, as a printmaker, it's just like that all lies under the realm of fine arts, whereas like photography, I think, can be a little bit more commercialized.
Absolutely, yeah.
And our school just didn't focus on that part of it.
Okay.
So yeah, I applied to the BFA program, and I remember writing in my paper, I don't just want to be a wedding photographer or something like that, which I like cringe at myself thinking about writing that. Because I just love what I do so much now. So I'm like, exactly. It's
and why is that? Did you not want to pigeonhole yourself, or what?
It was just like, it was viewed as like selling out.
Really?
In a way. Yeah. It's like, oh, you couldn't make it as a fine art. It's almost like, you know, those who can't teach or whatever. It's like those who can't make it as a fine artist end up going into commercial.
Being a wedding photographer ain't easy, though.
It's not. And it's like, I don't know, and we'll talk about it, but there's so much fulfillment I get from it. And again, like being with people, and I also feel like maybe some artists are a little bit more introverted, where like, you know, they like to be in the studio all day and stuff like that. And even in the BFA program, I had my own studio space, and so many people utilized it so much and were painting in there all day. And I was just in there to like, it was extra storage for me, because like all the equipment I needed for photos in the basement. I also liked being around people. Like I didn't want to just like be hauled up in the studio all the time. So then I thought I wanted to be a fine artist for a while. Okay. And although I really do love that part, and I, you know, now I almost wish I had more time to like just experiment and do more fun, you know, creative projects on my own. I also realized that is a lot of time alone, a lot of, you know, not talking to people, a lot of quiet galleries and stuff like that.
What were you taking pictures of in under the realm of fine art?
So actually I focused a lot on mental health. So it was like portraits and stuff like that, but I did a whole series on depression. I did an entire series on mental health that I actually like sewed in the brain scans of like what I know. I'll have to show you. It's really, I think it's like one of my top projects that I ever made. I think it's the work that I'm probably most proud of from that era in my life. But yeah, I used like needle felt, and I did a lot of research, and it's probably not accurate. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I did a lot of research to see like the different colors of what your brain scans would look like in a
MRI, fMRI, functional MRI. Yeah.
Yes, for people who have ADHD, depression, anxiety, OCD, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took their portrait. I took a little bit like a statement from them talking about you know, living with their disorder, and I was one of them. I have ADHD, so I put myself in the project and did some mixed media that way. So
wow.
Yeah, so a lot of like deep work, and I also like, it was a lot of introspective work too. I looked a lot into just my own feelings of growing up.
That's a lot. That's probably one of the aspects I like about photography, and it's a skill set to pull that out of someone to create a space safe enough for them to open up in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that was, I really love that work, but again, it was a lot of alone time and stuff like that. So, and me just being an extrovert and a people person, I wanted something else. And then I found and met my now great friend and business partner, Mackenzie Bigliazzi, who was a wedding photographer, and she was in the grad program at my school for education, and she was making it as a wedding photographer, and I thought, wow, how cool. Like, I've seen this before.
While she was in grad school?
Yeah, in grad school, yeah. Yeah, she does it all. And Yeah, so I was just like, I remember watching her and being like, wow, this is so cool, and just like stalking her Instagram stories
Sure.
and stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to like actually give this a shot. And I think actually my first wedding I shot before that, it was again during my sophomore year, and it was, I think I told you before, but it was 6 hours for $50 and dinner. And it was like a friend of mine, so it was like I didn't want to charge, and I was not a wedding photographer. I didn't totally know what I was up to back then. So
Is this something that they offered, or you reached out to like, hey, can I shoot your wedding?
no, they reached out asking if I
Okay.
could do it. And then they asked me what I charge, and I just like clammed up. So I was like, like you're a friend, I won't charge you.
This
And
is
they're like,
probably
no,
something
like,
you're guiding people on right now.
yes. Which like, yeah, don't do it for free unless you're just starting out and need the portfolio work.
Right.
Yeah.
If no one's knocking at your door, then maybe you're not, worth what you're asking.
Exactly. And like, yeah, I felt like it was great for me because like I got to like see my friend get married. I got to like capture that moment in her life. But it was also like, I don't know, I just didn't think anything of it. I didn't love it because it was kind of stressful. I didn't know what I was doing yet.
Wow.
But yeah, when I saw my friend Mackenzie doing this, I was like, wow, like I think I want to like try this again.
Okay.
So then I think I graduated. I can't totally remember the timeline, but I shadowed a wedding that was like my friend's cousin. And they asked the photographer, is it okay if like our family friend, shadows you? She's an aspiring photographer and she just wants to see like the behind the scenes of stuff.
Did you bring your camera at all, or?
I did.
Okay.
She had said it was okay. And I shadowed the wedding and I kind of fell in love with like the happiness. It was also like people that I knew. So it was like, I was kind of part of the celebration too. And then that photographer called me her competition and was like almost like being rude to me the whole day. And I was like, you said it was okay for me to be here.
What?
Like, I'll back up. I'm not trying to get in your shots or anything. She was a little bit of a old school photographer, like just, I don't know. I think she had been doing it for a while and felt a little bit jaded and stuff like that. And then like, I don't know what her feelings were about it, but yeah, I kind of felt like, oh God, I'm not wanted here. And then from there, I started second shooting with my now good friend. She just posted on Instagram asking like, oh, like I'm looking for a second shooter for like a bunch of dates in the summer. For those of you who don't know, second shooting on a wedding day, usually there's a lead photographer and then like an assistant, and we call that a second. Just because they're there throughout the whole day, like getting those like kind of more intimate shots or shots that the lead photographer just can't be at because obviously one person can't be at two places at once. Same as like when the couple's getting ready, usually they're in different places. So it's kind of nice to have two people. So yeah, I was a second photographer for an entire season and I had a couple of my own weddings booked. Again, just kind of like family, friends and stuff.
Was it hard getting those second shooter opportunities?
That one wasn't actually. She just like posted on Instagram and I reached out and I'm like, hey, I'm a recent grad. This is my work. I've shadowed this one wedding. I know what I'm doing behind the camera. I just don't know what like wedding days actually entail. And we had like a little Zoom call together and she's like, yeah, no, like we'll see how it goes. We booked the first job together. She liked working with me and then we did the entire season together.
Wow.
So it's not that I was like looking for jobs like here and there because she just like lined up my calendar, which was awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, it usually does work out like that. Like there are like Facebook groups for second shooting, but like they're so all over the place, even in the Midwest, right? And it's like I think it starts with like, do you gel with each other as a person?
Yes.
So once you find that, then everything kind of just falls into place.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So that's how I work with my second shooters now. Like I have, and I'll probably talk about her a little bit later on, but like my preferred second shooter right now is one of my associates, Stephanie, and we just like work so well together. It's like we complement each other in the best ways, and we also can just like gab like during dinner and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice. Whereas like I've worked with people who are very skilled, but if I don't vibe with them, it also kind of feels like a drag to like not be able to like hang out and like chat in those like in between moments. It's just kind of like forced conversation sometimes. So yeah, like finding somebody that you vibe with well is really important too, and just who knows the way that you work. So I feel like every once in a while there's dates that like your preferred second can't work, and that's when you throw them out in the Facebook groups, and that's when you get somebody. So she had me on for an entire season, and I shot a couple weddings on my own. that year. And then the following year, I just started like marketing my work that I second shot.
Yeah.
So as my own.
Probably have enough body of work by then.
Yeah. So I was able to like post on Instagram and be like, oh, I shot this wedding. Even though I was like second shooting, it's still my shot. You're still just out there marketing yourself. And started booking up my calendar for the following year. And from there, I actually got a full-time job on top of like doing a full wedding season for my first year.
As a safety net, or just because you wanted another job?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of like talk about like, what are you going to do for health insurance? What are you going to do? Like, you know, I don't know. There was a lot of like, and it was all well-intentioned questions that people had. But I think it was a lot of like, okay, what happens if you don't make it the way you want to make it type of thing. And it wasn't as negative as I'm like making it sound, but I just like got scared too. So absolutely. I got a full-time job actually I also worked photographing newborns before that, kind of like every once in a while. Yeah, I know. Literally, I worked so much in the first couple years of my business, like just doing so much. So, newborns were not my thing, as cute as they were not my thing. And then I moved on to be a photo editor for a magazine at Modern Luxury. And
oh my God, really?
Yeah. So it was really cool. It wasn't actually editing the way that you and I think about like editing photos, like retouching. Yeah. It was more scheduling, which I didn't totally know that going into it. But it was like a lot of scheduling out photo shoots for
I had no idea that's what a photo editor would do.
Right. There's photo retouchers for magazine, and then there's photo editors. If you think about it, like the editor of a magazine, like
editor.
Right? Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Okay.
I know. So I also was just like, what? But I was kind of happy.
That's kind of a big role, though.
It was like I had so Modern Luxury is actually like all across the nation. Yeah. So I had like 5 major cities. Yeah. So it was a lot of scheduling, and it was a lot of desk work, and that's also something I didn't love. What I loved was like getting the images from my photographers in those cities and being like, oh, like here's what we did. We got creative in this part, like we took your idea here and we also did our own thing here. And just like looking through the stuff that they made. I had this one photographer in Aspen who it was like for the wedding magazine, and she featured this florist, and they went to like this beautiful mountain and set up a whole tablescape like for a wedding with flowers, and then they took some portraits of her with her golden retriever, and I was just like so obsessed looking through these images, and I'm like, man, I wish I was there. But yeah, like that was the exciting part for me, was like seeing all of this planning come to life and seeing the photos. But it was like, what, 5% of the job was like looking at the photos, and most of it was planning it. Okay. So
it's more of a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was good for what I needed it to be. It was good still like getting my business running and stuff like that.
To see things on the other end of the spectrum, I guess, other side of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was kind of cool because I made some connections there that like now I can like submit my wedding work, and right. It's not guaranteed to get featured, but I just feel like I have that connection. So yeah, that was cool. And I worked full time, like 40 hours a week, and then photographed weddings on the weekends. Wow. So I had 16 weddings of my own that year too. And it was just
would that have been enough?
It depends. So it just depends on your prices and what your lifestyle and stuff is like. Sure. That was good for my first year, but that felt like half a season. Okay. I try and book myself out. Now I'm actually trying to scale down, but I feel like the average for wedding photographers is about 30. Okay. You'll have people that do 50 a year. You'll have people that do like 20 or 15 a year, and they're happy. It just depends what your lifestyle is, how much you like to work, and what you charge. Sure. Yeah. Right now I'm trying to I told myself I was going to cap myself at 25 weddings this year, and I went up to 28 because I just can't say no.
but you're, set a max, but then you have some wiggle room, right? And if you want to do it, you want to do it, and you have the luxury of saying no.
Exactly, right. And it's so nice when someone with this gorgeous venue and this awesome couple comes in, and you're just like, I don't want to pass this up just because I'm full. I have the date open. Nice. I can do it.
You're in a good spot.
Yeah.
If we can rewind, I wanted to tap into any takeaways from your season as a second shooter.
Yeah. I feel like I learned a lot about how the day is structured, about how a wedding day is structured. So from getting ready to the first look or the ceremony, and then there's family photos, cocktail hour, and then the reception. And just a lot of seeing how to interact with the couple without making it
because you're kind of playing coordinator as well in a way, right? To stay on the timeline.
I feel like I do that more as a lead.
That's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean. Like you're wearing many hats.
Yes, as a lead photographer for sure. I actually do a lot of planning, like timeline planning.
but you I'm saying, you did learn that as a second shooter of like the timeline, and is that timeline pretty standard across the board?
For the most part, it like has the same flow if you're doing traditional weddings over like elopements or something, or like smaller courthouse weddings, stuff like that. But if you're doing a traditional wedding, regardless of whether the ceremony be in a church or not, it usually has the same flow of things from, getting ready to the ceremony or the first look, and then like time for pictures in between that, like formal photos, and then family photos, cocktail hour, and then reception, and usually like the events of like a bouquet toss or stuff like that is like thrown in there too. But yeah, I learned that by like mostly observing. I think I was just like, I was like a little sponge when I was a second shooter. I loved every little bit of it and just like absorbing everything that I could to make it on my own when that time came. And also it's kind of fun because I feel like, in a bride and groom wedding, when there's like a male and female, usually the lead shooter is with the bride. And that's usually just because they're doing most of the planning and stuff like that. So the lead photographer will go with the bride and the second will go with the groom. And it was so fun because like usually guys are a lot more laid back on
and then just get ready like real quick.
Yeah, it's like 10 seconds of like, all right, just like adjust your tie and throw on your jacket and like look at your cufflinks, and like that's all the photos. But the rest of it's just like fun. I'm like encouraging them to like drink a beer, like cheers for a photo, take a shot, and not get them too drunk, of course. But like I don't know, that was also like a fun part, just like being able to like walk in and like I feel like it's something that not a lot of men love to do, is like be photographed getting ready in the morning type of thing. And then just be like, hey guys, like we're going to make this fun and we're going to make it really cool for you. And they're like, man, this girl's really cool. So we're like doing all this cool, silly things. We can do whatever they want. Like I've had grooms like want to wrestle shirtless for photos. I've had grooms that like don't want to do anything and they want to be done in 10 minutes, So cool. It's just like, I don't know. It's a lot of reading people too and seeing what they're into and like how they want to approach the day. And then like shifting your whatever you envisioned and like going with what they want because it's their day.
Yeah. Absolutely. With your first full wedding, did you feel ready?
I was so nervous.
Yeah.
I was so nervous. I felt like I had a good foundation for the camera and the timeline. But honestly, my first full wedding, like 8 hours.
Was it alone or you had a second?
I was alone.
Okay.
And I just felt like a lot didn't go as planned in my head.
Sure.
Things were like behind on the timeline by like an hour and a half, which like now as a seasoned photographer, I'm used to things being off schedule. But like even an hour and a half now, I'd be like, guys, like we need to like get going. Like that's a little too long. Like if it's half an hour, totally fine. But like an hour and a half, it's like, holy shit, we're rushing. So things were off. It was going to rain that day, so they had to put the ceremony inside, and then it didn't rain, and it was beautiful outside, and the indoor space was like not beautiful lighting, not very well
lit. Yeah,
lit.
Sure.
It was like very like orange lighting.
Oof.
And then their colors were like teal and purple, so it was just like a very hard editing situation too. So yeah, it was just like, it was kind of crazy, and I was very stressed the whole day. But they love the photos in the end of the day, and that's, that's what matters. I also feel like we ended up having to do their like newlywed and party and like family photos outdoors after the sun had set, and it was super dark out, and it was my first
Did you bring
wedding.
any like like flashes?
I brought a flash, but it was my first wedding. Like,
Absolutely.
I was not prepared for that at all. Like we had this whole timeline set like around the sunset and stuff like that, like around the lighting, and because things were just thrown off, like I was
dark
outside
real
in
quick,
the dark, and I had one flash on me, but like a flash outside, like it's got a different look, and that's not really what they probably wanted either. And it's not what I wanted. It's not what I love for like family photos and like those more intimate portraits. And the videographers, luckily they had some lights. So they were like holding up their lights for me, those poor things. And I was just like freaking out trying to like get as much natural daylight as I could because it was like dusk and it was just getting darker and darker. And I was like trying to rush through things. And like some of the guests were like, oh, she doesn't want us in her photos. And I'm like, that's not it. It's like, you're not on my list. And we're just like trying to run through this. So it was kind of stressful and hectic. And a lot of people, like I tell them stories about that day and they're like, wow, I'm surprised you wanted to keep up with this just with how stressful your first one was.
Yeah.
But again, I just like loved being around, especially on a wedding day. I don't think I mentioned this, but like it is a very happy time in someone's life. I'm not going to say it's the best day of their life because, you know,
more to come.
Yeah, more to come. Exactly. You might have kids, you know, there are other best days, but it is a celebration and you are surrounded by love and like even sad moments or stressful moments, like in the grand scheme of things, they're very small. And it's just like an overall great energy to be in. So like even through the stress, I felt like I was wanted there. Like I knew the bride and groom getting married and like, I just felt very like included in the celebration. And that's what I loved about it.
Yeah. It can be very easy to be overwhelmed, by like, I need to get these shot and that pressure. But yeah, if you try to remember, like, it's a celebration. It should be a happy time and it's their day. Right.
Yeah.
So, that being said, you had a very good year, right? That good half season wedding kind of thing. At what point did you go full send and like leave that full-time job?
Yeah. So, that was always the goal, right? Like I wasn't planning on staying at that full-time job for a while. I don't know why I was like so worried about health insurance because technically I'm getting kicked off my parents' health insurance like this year. And that was like 2 years ago that I'm worrying about this, even though I knew I was going to quit and like go full-time for photo. But anyway, it was just all those anxieties like coming up. But yeah, so I had a really great season. I just felt on top of the world. I felt like I was finally doing like what I was meant to be doing. And then I was still working full time, so I was just exhausted too all the time, like literally working, I don't know, probably 80 hours a week between editing and shooting and going to work. So
did you have a personal life at that time?
No. It was really hard. Yeah, it was really hard. I think a lot of like my friendships were tested, and they all, like the ones that stood the test of time, like, you know, I love them and they love me and they understand what I was going through, but it was hard. A lot of people were like, oh, like you're always working and you're never, you know, you never make full time for me. And I felt really bad. And I feel like there was a lot of truth in what they were saying. And it's their feelings, you know, they're entitled to them. But, it's hard because I feel like at that time too, like hustle culture was like so idolized. And it does make sense though. It's like that was the time for me to hustle.
You wouldn't be here without that, right?
Exactly. Now I have so much more like life balance, and I feel like if I didn't hustle the way I did, it'd just be like a prolonged struggle. So I don't know. I feel like you have to like take into account your mental health and stuff like that and make time for yourself no matter what season you're in. But yeah, it was hard to have a social life during that time.
Yeah. When it's, you know, when the wave comes, you ride it, right?
Exactly. And I knew it was worth it. I knew what I was working towards, like to have this life balance and to do this full time and be able to set my own schedule and stuff like that. But yeah, so I actually I was pushed out of the job. My entire goal was to be like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go full time. End of 2019, I ended my season. Beginning of 2020, I was feeling on top of the world. And then in March, the pandemic hit. And that was supposed to be my first like full season. So I had 30 weddings booked of my own in 2020. And it was going to be like my first full season. I was probably going to quit in like May just because like that was going to be the start of busy season. Sure. So I was going to quit my job and then like go full send into photography. Well, in March, the pandemic hit. all the weddings got rescheduled, and it was just like a very quiet year. So I kept my full-time job because I was like, okay, well, all of my money is being postponed because most of my couples, what they ended up doing was postponing their wedding, whether it be like half or full. And by that, I mean a lot of couples chose to like have a ceremony and like a small family reception during 2020. And
That's
then,
what you meant. Okay, so you broke up, but they had you at both parts?
Yes, they had me at both parts. So then, they had like the ceremony and like a small little get together and like some getting ready in 2020. And then in 2021, they had like a party. So they might still have like a mini ceremony, which like literally they just did their vows and like walked down the aisle, like kiss and walk down the aisle, because they're already married. And I understand that novelty of it is kind of over, but like it's still your wedding. You put so much time and effort in this. Like people deserve to have that day of celebration. So a lot of couples did end up splitting. So yeah, maybe some of my income still came in 2020.
Splitting the day.
Yeah, splitting the day.
Yeah.
And by that, they also split their payments with me.
Okay.
So
seems fair.
Yeah. So I tried to still obviously make it work monetarily for me in 2020. And I actually did. I ended the year a lot better than I thought I was going to come out of it.
Did you try to create some type of backup option?
Yeah. I think when things were opening up more towards like the summer and fall, I did a lot more like engagement sessions and stuff like that. And I actually kind of got creative. And when the pandemic first started, I started these like line drawings on my iPad. Like I bought like the Apple Pencil and just started like drawing some photos that I've taken of my couples. And I sent it to them as like I'm sorry this is happening. I'm sorry you have to postpone your wedding, and 2020 is the way that it's going. And they loved them. And then I posted it on Facebook or something. And I was like, I'm going to do line drawings because I'm bored and
You would draw their photos?
Yeah, and like they're super simple drawings.
I got to see this.
Yeah, I will definitely show you, but they're super simple. It's literally like a colored backdrop and white pencil, and I literally would just trace basically their photos. But I would draw them, and I posted on Facebook and Instagram just being like, I'm doing this, like I'm bored, all my, weddings are postponed, there's no work really happening. And then I just I was like doing it for free and asked people for tips. And I think because of that like incentive, like, oh, that's so nice, she's doing that, like I was able to make some money off of it too. So I don't know, I found like ways to get creative and like make ends meet. And I was still working my full-time job. We had like pay cuts and a furlough and stuff like that. But I kept that job through 2020 just for the plain fact of like, okay, I'm really not going to be working much this year. The way I expected to. And then at the end of 2020, I saw how much like revenue I made, which was under my goal, but still kind of close to it, even with the pandemic. So I was like, I can do this. Like, I don't need this full-time job anymore. Like, I can do this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to quit in January. I'm going to start the year fresh. Well, they let me go in December. And I was like, all right, severance, it's cool. So I got 2 weeks severance. It's fine. I was planning on quitting anyway. They did me a favor. And actually, I remember I like posted a video of being like, guys, I think I'm going to get fired today. Like the CEO, or not CEO, but like a higher up wants to talk to me, and like no one ever wants to talk to me. So I'm pretty sure I'm getting let go. And then like I got let go, and I went on there. I'm like, I got let go. And I said it like so cheerfully. And people are like, why are you so excited? I'm like, because like I get to do my business full time now. It's exactly what I wanted. And I don't know, it kind of like, that actually went kind of viral online, which was like kind of cool. I don't know what you consider viral, but I think it had over like 150,000 views or something. So I was like, whoa. And then I started 2021 as a full-time photographer. And 2021 was just chaotic because it was 2 years of weddings in one.
Backup, yeah.
Yeah, because even if it was like half a wedding, it's still basically a full wedding, because a lot of people ended up adding time because they're like, oh, well, we still want to like getting ready photos in the morning again, or like we're still doing a ceremony even if it's smaller, and it's like that all takes time.
And you are being accommodating, and you'll do that. You know?
Exactly, and like I don't know, it's like I feel like my couples just had the toughest time like rescheduling weddings. And I mean, imagine throwing a party for over 100 people, like just how chaotic that is. Like I don't know. And like on top of it, the wedding aspect and the ceremony and all the vendors and everything else that's invited. It's not just an event, it's a wedding. So I felt so bad for them that I was incredibly accommodating in any way that I could be. And yeah, so it was just a crazy year. It was like 2 years of weddings in one, and I was very, very stressed and burnt out last year. But this year's looking good. So.
Good. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you do any second shooting last year, or just
I think I did like
schedule?
2 weddings.
Like, do you still find that enjoyable, where you don't have to edit, you just kind of show up and shoot, or is that not worth your time anymore?
No, I do find it enjoyable. I think it's always beneficial to see how other people work. So I love doing it every once in a while. I only did 2 last year just because last year was booked up with like 2 years of weddings anyway. Also, on a day that I could probably book myself out at 8 to 10 hours and make a lot more money by being the lead photographer, by helping my couple plan throughout the process, rather than just like showing up, shooting, and leaving. It is less stressful because I don't have to edit. I don't have to think about anything else. I just have to show up and shoot. Is nice, but I just know that I can make my time a little bit more worth it if I can book it out myself. But I do love second shooting. I think I always learn something new. And even like one of the last ones I shot at was somebody I really looked up to. And I feel like I still learned, but at the same time, it was almost just like self-assuring in that like, wow, I really look up to this person.
You've been doing things right your way too.
Nice. It's like we do things very similarly.
Nice.
And like we have that same, whatever it is that makes you like, that gives you that confidence. Like I'm doing things right. So, so yeah, if anything, last year it was a little self-assuring and it felt really good. But still, I mean, I learn from my second shooters all the time. They'll teach me new things. So I don't know. I think it's interesting because like with photo, it seems very technology based and like there's only a couple ways to do something just because it feels like a lot of numbers and stuff like that. Whereas like, painting on a canvas, you could just do whatever you want. Sure. But like, no, there's so many more ways to do this. And I feel like photographers know it, but like people who are not in photography don't know that like you can get so creative and like there's different ways of setting up your light stands and different ways of like setting your settings on your camera or different lenses that you could use that like make different effects.
So which is a good segue to the next like kind of couple questions is like there's so many aspects to this, whether that's the software that you use to book things or the business side of things. How do you what's your quote? How did you arrive to your quote to people and things like that? Or like you said, the technical aspects of shutter speed, aperture, what brand did you go with? Sony, Fuji, whatever, like, and posing, posing's another aspect to it.
There's
Light,
so
all
much
that
to
stuff,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So like, where did you learn all these things?
Oh yeah. Okay. So the technical stuff, when I went on that workshop in Yellowstone, I learned so much about the technical part of my camera. I did not know what shutter speed, like I should be using it handheld versus like when an animal's running or something like that, like to get movement and stuff like that. Of course, I did learn some of it in film photography, but for me, it didn't translate to digital as well as like other people did. That like ISO triangle or the exposure triangle. That's getting a little technologically based. But I learned a lot of settings on my own. That was also something I felt like my education lacked. Was like teaching actually like the camera and how to use it like creatively. I felt like they were just like, read your manual and like,
oh no, that's like the last thing I want to do.
And then just focus on like what the picture actually holds, which like of course is important, but like I'm paying to learn how to be a photographer. Like please teach me how to use my camera. So that was tough, but I learned a lot from like YouTube videos, but also going on that workshop and just like seeing my mistakes after. Like I was like, oh my God, none of this is in focus, or oh my God, my shutter speed was way too slow for this. So I started, and again, I'll get a little technical here, but like I started on AV, like Aperture Priority on Canon, which means basically I get to set 1 or 2 of the settings, and then the shutter speed is just decided by the camera. It's like half auto, half manual. So I started learning that way, and then by like watching what the camera wanted to do in different lighting situations, I kind of learned. And then I was able to like graduate to full manual settings where I set everything.
Did you ever experiment with other brands, with other bodies, like whether that's
No.
Sony, Nikon, Fuji? I see a lot of Fuji users out there, actually.
Yeah. So a lot of my second shooters don't always shoot Canon.
And you're okay with that because usually leads are like, I shoot this, I want you to match that.
I prefer if they're Canon because there's like a temperature difference, like the colors are different between the cameras, and even body to body, like Canon from my Mark III that I was on, and now I'm on the R6. Like the colors are a little bit different, so it's like it is a little hard when you're mixing different bodies and stuff like that, but camera bodies. But
yeah, so you pretty much stuck with Canon.
Yeah, I stuck with Canon. But yeah, it really just makes a little more time on the editing side, making sure the photos match. It's not anything on the day of that like totally makes a difference.
Is there anything part of you that wants to bring film into this?
No, not for weddings.
Because there are photographers out there that use film, right?
Yes, okay. And I think it's amazing. I personally am so like entranced by the day and everything that's happening.
That's just one more thing you have to worry about.
Yes, I've tried like even like behind the scenes for like my own like marketing and stuff. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I have 10 minutes here. I should like probably be filming like the table setups or whatever to post on Instagram. I forget about it because I'm just like so focused on what we're doing in the day of like where I'm needed, what I should be grabbing. And if I have 10 minutes to just relax, like I will take it. I won't try and like post on Instagram or whatever. Same as like, I know a lot of like photographers, and I've been starting to incorporate this because I love the instant cameras. And I know a lot of photographers do that. It's not something I market and tell people I'm going to do because if I ever forget, I don't want them to feel like I missed out on it.
A couple brought like 5 of their own. Yeah.
Yes. Whereas like if I remember and I take a quick Polaroid and give it to them at the end of the day, it's more of like a present to them and like a surprise and wow.
No pressure, right?
Exactly. Right. And I'd love to start doing that more. But again, I'm so focused on what I'm doing with the couple and how the wedding day is going. Yes, that I'm like, and those are the photos that they're gonna frame and put in the album versus like the Polaroids. And I know a lot of people love film. I know a lot of even not photographers love the look of film, and to me, it would just be another element that I would be like, that would like take away from that experience that I give my couples. I actually bought my own little like, not disposable, but basically a disposable film camera to start shooting in my everyday life just because I miss taking photos for myself. I feel like doing it as a job, I kind of stopped doing it for myself for a while. So that gives me an excuse to not have to think about settings or, editing or anything. I just take it and it's done. And I'm getting my first roll developed, so I'm really excited to see that come out.
There's something deep to be said about this delayed gratification of not seeing your photos instantly.
It's hard.
And being able to delete it if you don't like it. Just take it again, right?
Well, it's also because like you have a night out. Like I had my film camera and I had my like phone, and we had like a night out. We went shuffleboarding with my friends, and I'm sitting there on my film camera. I'm so excited to see how those turned out, but I've already posted about it on my Instagram, being like, yeah, we had fun. Like, am I supposed to post about it again? I mean, who cares? But like, I don't know. It's part of that instant gratification. Absolutely. It's like, I had fun. Here's my photo of me having fun. So, and the other part of it, like posing and stuff like that. I learned posing a lot came with watching YouTube videos, Was
there a specific channel?
Yes. Her name was Jessica Whitaker. Oh, okay. She's based in New York, and she did a lot of couples and stuff like that too, which I loved. It was also just like taking workshops, watching people, second shooting and observing how, the lead photographer would pose and guide their couples to do things. So you have your go-tos, but then hopefully you have some wiggle room to have some like creative shot, like poses too. Yeah. And then I feel like engagement sessions or like those smaller sessions. You have more time. You have a lot more room to be creative in those. Whereas like a wedding day, it's like, I mean, even now, sometimes I go to my basic, like 5 to 7, like I know people like these poses. And if that's all the timeline allows me, I know that they're going to like those photos. But yeah, I didn't have time to be creative and do fun things that maybe me and the couple would have both loved. But it is what it is. And that's fine because like, as long as you're capturing the day the way they want you to and getting those key shots, especially like, I always joke with my couples that like we all want, like, I don't know, when you're in a relationship and like, I feel like, especially me as a woman, it's like you always want that cute photo of you and your boo looking at each other, and it's just like so intimate in that moment. But like, it's weird to ask somebody on the street like, hey, can you take a photo of us, and not look at the camera like as they're doing it. But honestly, those photos of you guys looking at the camera, like those are the ones that like your kids, your parents, your grandparents, like those are the ones that kind of want to see. It's like both of you just smiling at the camera. So I feel like that is a staple shot that you need to get like multiple times throughout the day. It's not a fun like photo to take. It's just like, okay, smile at me. It feels
grandma.
like, exactly. That's what I say. I'm like, this is your fridge photo. Like, yeah, parents are gonna love this. So just like smile at me. Let's get this over with, and then we'll do more fun posing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there was also an app called Unscripted that I used for a while.
I have it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have it, yeah.
So I used that for a while when I was like starting, and like even every once in a while now I get like weird anxiety, like, oh shit, what else do I do right now?
Pull out the app and
and it's kind of fun to pull out the app. Some of their poses are so
anyone can submit poses up there.
Dude, yeah, and they call it the funniest thing. They're like the snowbird, and it's literally the exact same pose from above of the couple just looking at each other and holding each other, but it's snowing in the photo. I'm like, well, I can't control that, so that's not really a pose.
I called this. I was like, hey, can you guys have your forehead cuddle? I was watching. John Branch had a whole BTS like 2.5 hour long video of like how he shoots a wedding.
Yeah.
I was like, I binged that just for this because I've never second shot, so it's just like logistically the timeline, how a wedding day goes. It's like that was what I needed to get down.
Yeah.
What about the business side?
Business, lots of workshops. Again,
okay.
Like I said, I am a person that learns from
Workshops
people.
based on like wedding photography still?
Yeah, and also I feel like I took some more business space, but there was one in particular that I loved, and they're no longer running. There was a lot of kind of drama surrounding it, but they taught me so much about the back end business, about marketing, about branding, about pricing and stuff like that.
Because it seems like you were very confident in your ability, right? But like, were you confident in how much you charged?
No. I heard no a lot when I was starting out, and I still hear no. And you know, I understand, and this is something that we teach our mentees and our members. And
she's got a workshop, guys.
Yeah,
she's got a
we
course.
have an online educational space. Me and Mackenzie, the photographer I mentioned earlier, we have an educational platform, and it's something we teach a lot that we still get said no to sometimes. And price is a factor for people planning their day. You know, like, I know it's an emotional purchase because it's your wedding, it's your only day, and that's how every vendor sells themselves to you.
Going through your website, it does evoke a lot of emotion.
Thank you. And for me, I'm biased. I'm a photographer, but like, yeah, your photos and maybe your video and some press flowers and your memories are the only thing you're gonna take from that wedding day, and most likely the photos are what's going to be like the test of time, right?
Yeah.
Because like the wedding videos from forever ago on our VHS or whatever, and now nobody watches those, and we had to all get it digitalized to DVD, and now it's on USB. And so, I feel like for me, the photos do have that emotional, that they evoke that emotional decision where it's like, this is what you're going to leave with, and this is what's going to help you remember that day to the very best of its ability.
So how much, when you're thinking about prices, how much of it comes from your time and your cost of doing business, whether that's your gear, your software that you're using, to how much the couple values these photos? Like, is there a balance between the two?
For sure. And I also feel like there's a value I put in myself. Like you said, like, I'm very confident in my ability to like serve my couples well on their day. There has been years and money that I've poured into learning to be the best that I can be for them. So there's also like the value I put into myself and my time and worth. But yeah, I don't know, if I sat down and like averaged it all out, I'm sure like it would come down to like X amount per hours. There was actually this workshop that I took about pricing, and this girl like listed out all the hours that it takes to like work a wedding, including like driving there, photographing their engagement session, and everything that editing time, everything that goes into it. And it was like 39 hours per wedding. So if you're shooting 30 weddings a year and it's 40 hours, it's basically a full-time job.
Absolutely.
So it needs to end up kind of being a full-time job salary. And then on top of that, we pay our own taxes. So being self-employed.
15.3%.
Yeah. And it depends what kind of a corporation you are too.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
I think I save like 40% of my
Nice.
money into taxes. So, I feel like it can't be totally an emotional base. When you're pricing yourself, you have to sit down and like look at your numbers of the time that you do things and the numbers, that, you have to give to the government and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that with the value that I, have learned and placed in myself, and the value that my couples place in me, knowing that like they can't get this day back, part of it definitely is an emotional thing that I'm able to charge more.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Like, there's so many ways to look at it. I mean, what if you just thought about what number you would want to make in a year and then figure in taxes, but then also figure, there's a lot of upsides to owning your own business. Whether, like when you start investing in yourself, whether that's workshops or gear, you kind of just like write that off.
Yeah.
What's a write-off, right?
Yeah.
You just write that off and, offset your revenue and things like that. But tell me a little bit more about then the workshop. Like, why did you guys want to create your own workshop? Were you not finding something as good?
Yeah. So we just wanted to basically open a space for photographers. And it first started out for photographers who are just starting out and had no idea where to go, because we had both been burned by people in the industry telling us like, you're not going to make it.
What?
Yeah, like stuff like that, which is just bullshit. Because I feel like if you work hard and love something enough, like you're gonna make it no matter what. So
where does someone get off at saying you're not gonna
entitledness?
Make it? What?
Yeah, it's entitledness.
And these are people that host workshops?
Or not even workshops, but like other photographers in the business that were like doing it for years, and they just felt like, oh, like who's this newcomer? They don't know anything. And like, I know that there's a place, like when I was first starting off, I knew I was at the bottom of the food chain when it came to this, but like, that's why I wanted to grow and learn. And like, I'm more than happy to pay for like the education that people were giving me. But like, like I've had mentors make me cry before, and it sucks. Like, so yeah, Mackenzie and I,
you guys know what not to be.
Exactly. And we strive our best to just like have, an open community where people can, like a safe space for people. Yeah. So in the group, a lot of, in our Facebook group, it's called Cultivate. And like a lot of people will go in there and just like, it's so sweet to see and to hear like, oh, like this is my safe space, and I can like just vent and talk about things here where like, where like a lot of people in another industry, even if they have their own business or even if they're a photographer, but like don't do both or whatever, they just don't get it. Like you can vent to your friends about like,
they might not get it.
About running your own business and how hard it is, but like they just don't get it because they don't do it. And they're like, oh yeah, that sucks. And it's like, no, I need more than that.
I need to talk about it.
Yeah. So it's kind of a safe space, but it's also an educational platform. So we just wanted to help people like get off on the right track, because there wasn't a lot of workshops when we were first starting. Now there is, but like when we were first starting, me and Mackenzie, like our own businesses, there wasn't a lot of people just like willing to, even like if you paid for information, to give it. It was a lot more competitive, and like there's that whole saying, community over competition. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people can preach it, but they might not live it. And it's funny because like even now, like I have some of my best friends here are wedding photographers in Chicago, and technically they are my competition. Like technically a couple might be looking at me and my best friend and be debating between us. That's technically competition, but do I see it that way? Like, no, because I can't be booked out for every single wedding that there ever is to exist in Chicago. Yeah. Neither can the next person. And some days I want to go on vacation and I'm just not going to be available. So like, it's nice to be able to share the wealth and be like, hey, I'm not available, but my friend here is, and she's amazing.
Did you always have that like abundant mindset?
I think so. I think mostly because it came from being shut down. So like the whole idea and the whole notion of like, you're not going to make it and you're not good enough. And, it's like a Shark Tank out here, like the competitive thing. I was like, it doesn't have to be. So like, I feel like by people telling me and like by feeling that way, I was just like, no, like, and also, yeah, I feel like one of the workshops I did talk about that too, but, yeah, that, I mean, Chicago's huge. There's what, 2.8 million people in Chicago.
We're lucky to be in the city, yeah.
Exactly. Or even in the suburbs. I mean, there's just so many weddings happening all the time, every year, that like, there's not a competition to me in terms of like, am I going to get booked? Because I've set the solid foundation for my business to like, for couples to want to work with me and stuff like that. But it's also, there's just so many weddings that if I ever have to scale down my price just because I have to make ends meet, that's fine. And like, it's still going to be a beautiful wedding. It's still going to be super awesome people that I vibe with. And you know, there's weddings happening everywhere. It doesn't matter what price point you're at. So
when you first set your prices and you were getting no's, did you feel compelled to lower your prices?
Yeah, for sure. When I was hearing no, I felt like, okay, maybe I'm not worth what I'm charging. And partly, I think part of it could have been that. I think I was charging under $1,000 for like my starting package.
Wow.
For like 6 hours of coverage. So it was like maybe just around $1,000. And I thought, okay, maybe that's still too much. But the other part of people saying no to you is because they found a better fit, whether that be money or not. Because like some people will tell me like, oh, like my budget is, you know, $4,000, but right now my packages start at $4,300 and they will book me at my middle package that might be $5,000 or whatever. Because they see that emotional decision and they also vibe with me or with the other photographer.
There's always wiggle room, right?
Yeah, there's so many more decisions just than money that it's like you have to create an open environment for this couple to feel comfortable with you on the most, one of the most important days of their life. Yeah. You have to show them good work. You have to kind of like vibe with them on a personality base because you're gonna be with them for like 8 to 10 hours of their day,
and you want to vibe with them too, right?
And I want to have a good time too. I'm not trying to be there with like shitty people or something. You know what I mean? Like, I want to work with people I want to work with. So there's a lot more to that. That like, when I was getting said no to a lot, it wasn't all the time. So some people were booking me. So I knew it wasn't totally the price. It was more about like maybe my confidence because I felt like a lot of times on the call I was shaky because it was like the first time I was doing it. Sure. And I was shaky on the call and like somebody I remember asking me like, oh, how many weddings have you shot? I'm like, I understand that question. I don't think it's totally like a testament to your skill base or whatever. I think you do gain a lot of experience from shooting more.
But if it's a stranger asking you, then that's like one of the metrics that they use for sure.
Exactly. And it's like, what do I do? Do I lie and say I've shot like 10 weddings? Do I, tell them this would be my first?
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. So what I told them was, I've shot 3 of my own because I think at that point I had or something. And I've second shot for this many. And so I know what a wedding day looks like. I can show you a portfolio of like the days that I've done. And I also think, just giving more examples and more supporting stuff to show them that you know what you're doing. Even if you're just starting out, just being like, look at my portfolio, look at my reviews from the people I have shot with, to kind of justify that price a little bit. But if you're getting said no to all the time, maybe lower that price until people keep consistently saying yes, and then you can raise it until where it's like a half and half, like no and yes. And then again, it like the more experience, the better you become at it, more people will say yes, and then you just keep going like that.
Wow. You ever, as far as like, I had another question regarding that, but I lost it. As far as workshops go, do you ever want to like bring in like a fake, or like a couple, like to do like a walk around the city and have like 10 mentees or students kind of go through that workshop with you?
Yeah. So actually so Mackenzie and I are hosting a Cultivate workshop in July this year. And we're going to do it out in Colorado, but we are doing more of a posing and creative based workshop. So there will be some business involved, but we will get like couples to pose for us.
Okay.
In the city specifically, it's a little bit difficult because
venues, or what about just outside?
you could do a venue. Outside is where it gets difficult because everywhere in the city technically needs a permit
No
to
way.
shoot at.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, and like we get away with it all the time. Don't get me wrong. Like I hardly get permits, and watch, some cop is gonna come and get me for this. But I hardly get permits unless I know it's a place that like they crack down on it. At Millennium Park, they crack down on permits. But technically, you need one for like every block of Chicago. You need a permit to shoot or something like
a bridge
that.
shot or anything like that.
Yes. I feel like more of like the staple places are more
Sure. Monitored.
policed and monitored. But again, I have only been asked twice for a permit. So you do get away with
like
it.
a cop
but
would
if
pull
you
over
have,
and ask?
it's more of like the park rangers, but yeah.
Oh.
Like, yeah, they can ask. A cop can ask, especially on a wedding party. Like if you have rowdy, drunk people, like it can be a little nerve-wracking when you're like, guys, like, please, I know you're having fun, but like keep it together because like we can't be here. Yeah, for the workshops, I would love to do that, but it does make it more difficult when you have a group around you, like 10 cameras shooting around you, one couple, like it's kind of like a target for someone to be like, hey, what is this?
What are they doing?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, a cop came. There was a photographer model meetup a while ago, probably last summer, and it was near Chinatown, and we're still in a park, but like cops definitely rolled up and you're like, what is going? There's like 200 people here. Like people like came in from Michigan, Florida, and like
Fun.
from all levels, from like intro models to people that have been doing it for years, and same with photographers. So it was a great experience to like come across and just network with people, but I never would have thought like that permit thing never came across.
That's fun. I don't know. And maybe it's just like I haven't looked super into it, but like maybe it's just like Buckingham Fountain, Millennium Park, Lincoln Park, Boardwalk type of places. But yeah, I do feel like it raises red flags, and especially if like people are paying to be there and they like find out that like we've charged people to be here, they're like, well, why didn't we get our cut as the city of Chicago type of thing. God,
get out of here.
So it gets a little difficult. Venues, you definitely can. I've set up like styled shoots like that for and same as like Airbnbs and stuff like that. That's probably what we're doing for. I would
love to do that.
Yeah, for our Colorado workshop, we're like renting out a big Airbnb and like going to a couple of national parks that don't require permits out there. So it'll be super fun.
For the longest time, I'm like, I'm gonna get a studio one day, and I got a studio, and I don't have like really fun lights or gels to like create a spotlight or whatever. So you can only do so much with a studio, and I think I'd eventually like to rent out an Airbnb and just charge, like, just at least cover cost, and like everyone can have a very creative, like stylized
that'd be so fun.
It's just a different environment every
and
time.
Again, like you just learn so much by creating relationships with people that are in your niche, but also might do things differently. So like you said with gels, like I never work with gels, but if somebody like really like sat down and kind of taught me like their methods and how to use them, like I might start thinking of ways to incorporate that in my own work and stuff like that.
On the walk over here with coffee, like we were talking about Thailand and stuff, and like, what if you hosted a retreat in Thailand?
You can. People do that. So I'm going to Spain in a couple weeks, which I'm so excited about. But I was looking up workshops because I have also, like, I've hosted a couple and I haven't been to one in a while, and I'm like, man, I miss this, and I miss being a student. And I was looking at one that ended up being in Barcelona, but like after the fact that I'm there, so I'm like, okay, that's not gonna work.
Okay.
I just also want like a vacation
For
rather
sure.
than like work. But yeah, like you can go, there's some in Hawaii, there's some in Thailand, like there's some all over the world. So honestly, I have just looked up like wedding photographer workshops and like seen like articles that come up like top 10 in 2022. So
okay. The question that escaped me is back now. And as far as getting inquiries, like how did you navigate marketing?
Yeah. A lot of my business is still based off word of mouth. So when I was first starting out, I feel like I told everybody I'm going to be a wedding photographer. I just talked about it all the time. I talked about second shooting and like showed my work on Instagram of what I had been doing, even though they weren't my own weddings that I was booking and stuff like that.
That counts.
But yeah, I was nonstop talking about it with people. And then like friends of my friends were getting married, and like friends of my friends of my friends
I
were
mean,
getting married.
you do
so.
you do a few big events, and there are other people at that event that are probably looking to get married,
Exactly.
and they see your hustle at the wedding and be like, she's cool, like, and she's vibing with the couple. Like, maybe we'll ask her if she can do our wedding.
Exactly. And now, especially like after shooting a couple weddings and stuff like that, like I get bridesmaids of a wedding that I had already shot, and like groomsmen of a wedding that I've already shot.
Nice.
So it's like, yeah, it's like you're not only like creating those relationships with just the couple on the day of, but like you're also making a fun, positive experience for everyone involved, including like their parents. Like it's a big day for their parents, like sending off their children to get married and stuff like that. That like I just try and be a good person on wedding day. Honestly,
it goes a long way.
And yeah, it goes a long way. Like people remember like the little things that you did and stuff like that, and they're like, man, she was cool, she was fun. I want that energy at my wedding.
Right.
I love it. It's always the maid of honor telling me like, you have been the best wedding photographer that I've ever like been in a wedding for. And I'm like, oh, that is such a compliment, first of all, but like, thank you. Also hit me up when you're getting married. But yeah, I feel like I just talked about it a lot. A lot of word of mouth came from it. And then just posting on Instagram, hashtags. I don't have a social media strategy. I actually just talked to like maybe I'm looking into getting a social media manager. Even now it's like easier. I'm not utilizing it, but like Reels and TikToks, like it's so much easier to like just throw things out there and have people like watch them and like land on people's For You pages and, you know, explore pages. The second largest chunk of my business comes from Instagram. So
okay, so word of mouth, then Instagram. You got a good number of views on Google.
Okay, thank you, because that is the third, and I'm so surprised by that.
Why? Like Google, like before social media, Google was the thing.
I know, but like I know nothing about SEO. So I think after I redid my website, I hired somebody to redo my website, and she was amazing, and she did some basic but back end SEO stuff. Sure. And ever since that, and just like throwing out blog posts and stuff like that, I've been getting more.
You're establishing relevance, and
so what's my number on Google? I don't even know.
No, not number. It's I don't know what your ranking is, but like the number of reviews that you have.
Oh,
so people like, but there's value in that, right? Like people went out of their way because they had such a good time to go through Google, not just send you a DM or an email, but like go onto Google and onto your business page on Google and then leave a review.
Yes. Okay. That's what you were talking about. I thought you meant like I was like
I didn't actually like Chicago wedding photographer and like Victoria St. Martin shows up. Like I didn't do that. No. You might be ranking pretty high.
No, that's why I was like, I don't think I'm on the first page of Google. That's why I was like, damn, am I? Like maybe I should look that up. Yes, that's actually something I ask of a lot of my couples. So like when I know,
ask and you shall receive.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when I deliver their galleries, I always ask them for a review. And also some people have like given me 5 stars and that's it in the past, which is great. It's 5 stars, you know?
Yeah.
But I know it's not a helpful review for other people who are wagering me or somebody else, right? So when they're wagering me versus another Chicago wedding photographer and they like our work the same, our prices are the same, or they don't care about the number as much, what does it come down to? It's those reviews and how well they worked for this person in more than just good photos. So when I deliver my photos, I ask them for a review and I say, oh my God, like I had such a fun time working with you. I talk about their day specifically to them. And then I say, if you like loved your photos in the end and you loved like working with me, if you wouldn't mind writing me a review, this really helps keep my business alive. It helps other amazing couples like you guys, fall into my lap and we can work together. And then I give suggestions of like things to talk about in the review. So it's not just 5 stars.
Wow.
And it's not just, oh, she's amazing. It's like talk about what did you think of your final photos? What experience, like how did you think of the overall experience? And then in parentheses, I put like, did I tell amazing jokes? Am I like super fun? And like, I don't know, just like throw some jokey things out there.
Where did you learn that from? Because that's like influencer talk, right? That's like call to action, like SEO. That's SEO talk in a way, you know?
Yeah, I think I just picked that up from like getting reviews that felt like they didn't mean much. Like I know it's still 5 stars and it's still, oh, we loved her, she's amazing, but I'm like, this isn't helping me. Like,
gotcha.
I appreciate it and I am grateful that someone even took the time to give me 5 stars, but I know it's not actually helpful in the grand scheme of things.
Sure.
So I just like made up my own little list of things that I want them to talk about. So I talk about like, what other services did we provide on your wedding day? Like we have a photo booth, we have, I do timeline guidance. So walk them through their entire timeline 2 months before, whether they have a planner or not. Like, I've ended up, I think I do that for 90% of my couples, or okay, probably 100% with a planner, but without a planner, it's probably 80% of my couples. I'm sitting there and I'm helping them sort out their entire timeline. So like all of those things matter, and it's things that they can easily forget about when they're writing a review, because all they have at the end of it, like 2 months after their wedding day, are the memories of, oh, it was so fun taking photos with her, and the photos are great. But I'm like, you forgot about all this other stuff I did, the engagement session, the planning, the blog post I sent you. So you just have to remind them. Exactly. And it's not their fault. Like, I've got better and bigger things to think about than like leaving incredible, meaningful reviews for people. Right. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. That helps. How did you navigate making packages?
Yeah. So I think, again, I learned the Goldilocks Method.
Ooh, I've never heard of the Goldilocks Method.
Yes, I will teach it to you. So I learned the Goldilocks Method from, I think, mostly workshops and also just seeing what other photographers are doing too. But this is like a sales tactic. So there's the a la carte, right? There's hourly coverage. There's a second shooter. There's an album if you want to do albums. There's a photo booth if you want to add a photo booth, stuff like that. A USB if you want to add that. So there's all of that a la carte, and then you create 3 packages. So there's one that's too big, one that's too small, and one that's just right. Of course, this doesn't fit everybody, but it's like a psychological thing that, like, with the lowest package, you're just getting, for me, it's just like bare minimum coverage. So 8 hours of coverage, all your digitals, everything fully edited, and downloads and shareables for family and friends. So that's just that. The middle package is kind of like that just right, where it's like, okay, I am better than like this lower price package or like the not as big package, but like I'm not as bougie as that like top tier package. Like I don't need all that, but I'm better than this. So then you go for the middle one, and the middle one you can build it however you want. For me, it's like 8 hours of coverage, a second shooter, and an engagement session. So it feels like everything that they need. And then the top package is like 10 hours of coverage, and the photo booth, and then everything else that the 8 hour has. Okay. So it's like, okay, if you don't want that photo booth, you don't need 10 hours because everything's at one venue, and like you just don't need 10 hours of coverage, then yeah, I think 8 hours of coverage is great. It's up to you if you want to have that second shooter and that engagement session. And then from there, I also guide my couples a lot during those consult calls. I ask them a lot of questions about their wedding, as in like, how many guests are coming? How many people are in your bridal party? Are you having a first look or not? Have you thought about that? And I don't make them give me an exact answer but I talk a lot about what their day is going to look like, because then I can start figuring out what package I think is best for them. Yeah. And I try not to come off like a salesman or salesy. I try to just like be educational, because I'm like, okay, anything over 150 guests, like I would 100% recommend adding on a second shooter, because
you're helping them make an informed decision.
Exactly. I'm one person, right? Like I can't photograph 150 people all at once. So just like explaining it in a way that they see as beneficial to them helps me sell a higher package too. And then I also send like supporting blog posts that I've written about like when to add on a second shooter, why a photo booth is a good idea, why an engagement session is a great way to like feel comfortable on your wedding day, stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. And through these like relationships that you've cultivated, like they had such a good time with you on their wedding day. When they have other big moments like a maternity shoot or anything else, family portraits, and they ask for your services, like do you go for it, or do you like it's not my thing?
Yeah. So I have, and I don't market it, I don't advertise it, mostly because it's not totally my thing and it's not my niche. Whereas I think I told you I photographed newborns for a while, so I learned enough about like quieting down a fussy baby, and I know enough about lighting and stuff like that. I don't think I totally have the patience for fussy babies and stuff like that. Sure. Whereas other people do, and they know exactly how to pose the baby and like what could be potentially dangerous, but they could still like, they know how to do it in a well way. You know that like pose where the baby's like holding up its head? Oh. Yeah. it's actually a very dangerous pose to do for the baby. So that's something I would never attempt.
Okay.
But like that's somebody else's niche and something that they are so good at doing. And they'll spend like 3 hours with mom and baby trying to make sure that they're getting the perfect shots in between feedings and baby being, you know, calm or not and stuff like that. Whereas I want to be in and out in an hour if I'm doing a baby shoot, or like maybe 2 hours max. And sometimes the baby's just fussy and I don't have the patience for that.
I hear you.
So I have done maternity. Maternity is it feels more like couples because it's couples poses, but just like based around a belly. It's where when they start having kids, I start recommending them to other people. Some of the couples that I have just like adored and we've gone through like all of the stages of their relationship together. I recently did a newborn session for one of like my favorite couples ever, and I've been through them through engagement, the wedding, now maternity, and now their firstborn, and I'll probably end up doing their secondborn when they have it. You know, once the kids are probably like running around and they're screaming toddlers, that's really where I'm going to draw the line. I'm going to be like, I'm so sorry, but here's an amazing person that can like, and like, I know that person has the patience to get those beautiful shots that the family wants rather than being stressed and getting just kind of like, maybe not the best with me because it's just not my niche. And I feel like everybody, when you niche down and you like focus on one thing, you can do that so well. Whereas like if you try to be the jack of all trades, you're master of none.
Shit, that's my issue right now. It's just like I guess I'm trying to see what my niche is.
And that's fine though, because like I mean, you heard me. I tried everything before I figured out wedding photography was right for me. Like, and you can have 2 niches. You know, you can have more than one, but like it has to fit for you.
God, this Danny Bautista, he does like editorial / bikini style portraits, but his website has other stuff like food photography and maybe real estate or architecture, something like that. And but it's just not marketed. Yeah, it's there though, right? And and I guess like the one thing I realized from that is like the importance of niching. So when someone does want your services, you've established that kind of like the ability to handle what they're asking of you. But who's, you know, no one, you have that luxury of like wanting to do something else if you're interested in it.
Absolutely. I think my other, like, I have been thinking and hoping to get like a boudoir brand going for a while. Yeah. I love boudoir. It's amazing. I find so much like joy and fulfillment out of that too, just like making somebody feel so confident in their skin. Right. And it's different from weddings. And I love it so much. I just like, I don't market that on my wedding website because I know when people like land on there, for me in the marketing and business side of things, it's like, I want it to be clear. This is what I do. This is what I'm amazing at. And this is why you're here. Whereas like, I know when I worked for the magazine company, our photographers would have portraits, food, real estate, you know, all of these different things. And I would click through it and I'm like, wow, this person's amazing at food, but they kind of suck at portraits, you know? And it's like, I know they have to throw it out there because like when you're, as an editorial photographer, websites and marketing is totally different. Wow. If you don't have like a specific niche and make it in that niche, you kind of have to like appeal to all of it because you're just trying to get work with publications and stuff like that. I can't speak too much on it because I don't know that much about it, but I know that their websites look totally different from like wedding websites where like me, like I just want to be a full resource for my couples on my website.
That, yeah. As far as like editorial and stuff like that, how important is it to get published? Or like, so, what's that process of like submitting your photos? And you asked like your audience like 9 photos, all of them were straight fire.
Oh, thank you.
So good. Yes. It was very hard to, and I didn't even give you like I couldn't like choose, right? So
yes.
how important is this more for fun or like does this? I'm sure, you know, brides to be are flipping through magazines, but like how important is that?
So I actually just got an inquiry from somebody who found me in a magazine, which I thought was cool because I never get those. So if it tells you anything, it's not that important. Because people will see it and maybe every once in a while you get an inquiry from someone being like, wow, I saw your work in this magazine, unless you have this full like spread or something. Or like a full page or something. Could
you put that magazine brand in your website then, right?
Yes, and I do. So I do a lot of like, I teach about like the psychology of websites with being a wedding vendor. And yeah, something I think a lot of us vendors like place value in are those like badges, like Wedding Wire's best of 2020 or whatever. I think I won that one. But like, what does it actually mean? And what is it actually doing for me? Not actually as much as you would think. It's like cool to get recognized or an award or something, but like really nobody, like, it's not like they have an award ceremony. It's not like an actual thing. They give you like a little sticker badge to put on your website. That is it. That's all they do. And they put it on your like Wedding Wire account, which like I get little to no business off Wedding Wire.
Okay.
Some people.
What about the knot?
They're kind of the same. But yeah, some people thrive off those. I don't. Most of my business comes from Instagram and word of mouth, like I said. But those things I feel like just give you social credit. So it's nice to put on your website to be like, look, I made it into this, and like it's a cool recognition. But for me, it hasn't gotten me any business, like being in those things, like maybe 1 or 2 weddings.
Gotcha.
Out of the like, I don't know, 60 plus that I've shot over the last couple of years. So
okay,
yeah.
Awesome. So as we said earlier, you've come to a place where you want to cap it. You have a certain number that you want to hit, and you have some wiggle room to do ones if it really fancies your interest.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to shoot forever, or do you think you're going to pivot to something else, like maybe more education or more workshops? Or?
Yeah. So that is like the question I've been asking myself since I like started photography, because I know that I can't be doing this forever the way that I'm doing it now. Not only like is it a lot of strain on my body, but it's also a lot of weekends, whereas like, if I eventually want to settle down and have a family and kids, like that's going to be hard to be away from like the kids on the weekends and stuff like that. But also I have found, and it's not always true, but I have found that here in Chicago specifically, the age range of people getting married are between, or at least most people and like my clientele are between ages 25 and 34. And young people hire young people.
Oh shit.
Because we're relatable and we know what they like and we can like hang out with them and like be buddies with them. Whereas like it's rare that I feel like, a 24-year-old getting married.
Be elbowed out of there eventually.
Yeah, like I'm gonna get old, it's part of life. And a 24-year-old will most likely hire another 24-year-old to like a 30-year-old, whereas hiring like a 60-year-old or a 50-year-old, it's just like it's a different generation at that point. So we're lucky now, we're young now, and we can be in this like realm with them. And I'm not saying that
it's kind of like stripper money. You just gotta save up right now.
Oh my God, I love it. Exactly.
Can't do it forever.
Yeah, like we talk about it a lot, like retiring early in the community, like around like 45 is kind of like retirement age for us. That's not.
But retirement isn't doing nothing.
Exactly.
Right?
No.
It's doing what you want to do on your own terms.
Exactly. So, I love working. So it's not going to be a retirement where I'm like on vacation from 45 to 80 and, kick the bucket at 90 or whatever, like I don't know what my life holds, but I have thought so much about what I want to do after this can't be a full-time thing anymore. And I still come up short. There's so many things that I am interested in, but not as much as I love this. So I'm just like kind of putting full gear into this.
Yeah.
And, I've thought about education a lot. I've thought about, I don't know, even like totally pivoting and doing like interior design or something like that. Yeah. Just like, who knows what I'm going to be interested in then.
So after all this time, you've probably established a rapport with all these other vendors, right? So if you wanted to dive into more of like the interior design or the planning, whatever it is, like you probably have met so many other people within the industry.
Yeah, that's the best part of networking, right? It's just like you meet people who help you out and you can help them out in different ways. So I think that's true of anywhere you go, regardless of what you do. It's just like network, be nice to people, and like literally opportunities come up like this. So, but yeah, another part of it is that I actually added on associates last year. At the end of 2020 is when I added on associates. So those are in my business, I am a lead photographer and I own my business, but I have 2 other lead photographers that I can send out on a wedding day that I'm already booked for. So I tell the couple, hey, I'm not available, but my associate Ashley or Stephanie is available. I will still be the one to plan your entire wedding with you. I will still be the one to edit your photos for you. They are trained under me. They know what I like and how I capture things. So like, it's the next best thing to having me. So when I have couples that are just like, man, like we just love her and we want to work with her, and I just physically can't, instead of sending that, that money to another photographer, which I still do, sometimes none of us are available, whatever it is. But instead of sending that money away, I can still get paid, work with this couple, give them an amazing experience with like the style that they want for their wedding, the people they want to work with, and pay my associates and like book them out. So
was that hard, kind of just like building a team and establishing, because you've established brand recognition by now, right? And if someone was to show up, and you're upfront about this, and not be you, do that, and they're still associated under your name, right? So like, how hard was it cultivating a team that you vibe with?
Yeah. It was hard at the beginning.
Like, do you put them through a second shooter phase and let's try out,
Yeah. So actually I hired somebody I was dating with to be an associate, and that was a mistake. So don't do that. That was bad. But I hired somebody I was dating, and that didn't work out. And it was just like a learning mistake on my part. Even though like we had talked about it, I made him sign a contract, like if we break up, like, what's going to happen. And I thought we just had enough mutual respect to like, this is a job, like this part of our relationship is a job and this part is a relationship. So I thought there was enough of that, but it ended up being kind of bad. And he missed a job, and I had to like just make ends meet to like work my schedule around. It's not that I was booked on another wedding. I just wasn't available. And I had to like rearrange my whole life to like make it for this day. And that is something I do. Like, I mean, one of my associates just had an appendectomy, which like was out of nowhere, right? And she had a wedding booked that weekend with me, and we just had to figure it out and hire another person that we know and trust to like show up. I had to talk about it with the couple, be open and honest with them, but like at the end of the day, that was not her fault, right? It's no one's fault. And the couple was super understanding, and the photos of the associate that we hired to replace her were beautiful, and it all worked out. But having people you trust is so important, because like I thought I could trust him and it just didn't work out. Sure. And luckily I was able to make things work for me and my couple. Yeah. But yeah, the other 2 associates, so he's no longer an associate of mine, but my 2 current associates, I found them both through a Chicago photographer group. And I actually posted about like, hey, I am hiring associates, like who wants to be on this team? I made them fill out like a application form. It was a very formal interview process, actually. I had my friend who has like hired a lot of people within her own like corporate job be like the first interviewee. So she hosted conducted all the first rounds of interviews. I think we interviewed like 7 people. And then she gave me like her top choices, and then I interviewed with them. I think I interviewed 4 of them, and then just talking with her, I decided on Ashley, and she's amazing. I know I can trust her. She did do some second shooting with me. We did some like styled shoots to like get her own portfolio started underneath me, but also like I can teach her some things and like how I do things.
That's a good way to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Was she very fresh, or did she have her own?
No, she's a seasoned photographer. She knew totally what she was doing. That was also very important to me. I didn't want to just like teach somebody how to use a camera. Like I wanted them to know how to be a strong lead, but just basically morph into my brand when they needed to be a part of it. And she has been amazing. And then my second one, I added her on a little bit later. She actually started off as a second shooter. So she's second shot with me for probably half my season at first, and then a full year. And then within that full year, I was like, hey, I need a replacement for this old associate that didn't work out. Like, do you want to be an associate? And she said yes. And she said yes for those jobs at first. And then she said yes to being an associate, like where I can market her full time. And she's been amazing. She knows exactly, like I said, her and I work so well together, like that vibe and flow. She's still my preferred second shooter. Like, I think we have I think she's second shooting 15 jobs for me this year. And then she's associate shooting another 5 to 7 or something like that.
Is this their full-time gigs? Are they doing anything else? Or?
They are also photographers. They are full-time photographers. I think both of them, Ashley does some family stuff. Stephanie also works at a brewery, so she has some side gigs, but they're mostly full-time photographers. They have their own businesses as well. It's just days that I'm booked out or I'm unavailable that I'm hey, are you guys available? They'll say yes or no. And then I'll pitch them to my couples. And I still hear no a lot because some people are just really excited to work with me. And, when I pitch them somebody else, they're we'll find someone else.
She's handing me off.
Yeah, maybe. And I don't see it that way. It's just I would have done that if I wasn't available anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is just another opportunity to work with me if you really want to work with me or still get the photos that you want. But if
but I think you guys do a good job, at least on the website, of showing everyone on the team.
Yeah.
Right. I wonder if there's anything else more, maybe promoting just more BTS of each other.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think so. I again,
so they can vibe with your team, right? Not just you.
Yeah, and we do associate dinners every once in a while. It's more right now we just come out of slow season, so we haven't hung out much. But actually, Ashley and I are flying out to San Diego this weekend to shoot a wedding together. So there's probably gonna be some oh my god, we're out here, my associate and I, and I always try to refer to them as associates so that it's not just oh, I'm out here with my friend.
Yeah.
Even though we are friends, but it's oh, look at my team. This is my team.
Yes.
These are my teammates.
Okay.
So.
Growing pains. It sounds like you've been navigating them really well, though.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's all new and it's all fun, though. It is weird and it's different being a boss, and it is a lot more behind the scenes work. So it's
people want to be a boss, and then you be a boss, and it's this is a lot of work.
Exactly. It's so hard. And it's also when you have associates, it's 100% more business and no creative shooting.
Right.
The most creative I can be is in editing. But I also have established a style, so I kind of have to work within my umbrella style. And also the most creative I can be is sometimes on their engagement session, I'll be hey, why you said that you love to cook. Why don't we do an in-home cooking session? Ooh. But Ashley or Stephanie is going to be the one shooting it. I'm just the one that suggested it. So I don't actually get that creative feel out of being, the boss of an associate. But it's amazing working with a team, and I still get to serve amazing couples and make sure that their days are photographed the way they want them to be. So that's where I get my FOMO out of it.
Okay. Along the lines of growing pains, have you ever thought about outsourcing editing?
I actually do.
Oh, you do outsource editing? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I have been outsourcing my editing for 3 years now. Me and my editor are friends. She lives in Canada, by Vancouver side, and I just love her, and we can't wait to meet in person.
Can you share how do you guys transfer all these large files?
Yeah, so she has her whole system set up. I just morphed into it, but all through Dropbox. So basically, instead of sending the full raw files of photos and stuff like that, we send the catalog, the Lightroom catalog.
Gotcha.
So she can edit
more
without
manageable,
having the actual photo.
Wow.
It's just pixels instead of the actual raw metadata. Yeah. I don't know the back end of it too much.
No. I think that's what happens when you outsource a Lightroom photo into Photoshop and then save it, and then it just that's how I think the computer does it, at least. So it's you're not sending these large files even between software.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's how we do it, and we just do it through Dropbox.
Gotcha.
We send it to each other.
That's cool.
But yeah, she only does my weddings, so I'm still editing all of the engagement and smaller sessions.
Okay.
And I also edit 20.
Is there a reason why?
She's just niched down to just do weddings. That's what she loves to do. So that's what she offers. She's also an editor for I think 30 other photographers around the States and Canada. Gotcha. So she's just got a lot on her plate to do smaller sessions too.
Gotcha.
But she's amazing, and I edit about 20% of the gallery. I do what they call anchor images. So I'll edit different parts of the day. So from getting ready to the ceremony to all the way to the reception.
So then the editor has a feel of where you're going for, what you're going for, right?
Yeah, because it's not we can just, and this, we can't just slap a filter and call it a day, right? There's presets, a lot of presets, the lighting changes, skin tones, all these things you have to worry about. So I edit about 20% of the gallery, just different random photos throughout the day. And then she will go through and edit the rest of them to match what I've already anchored. So it's not like I don't touch the images at all. But she definitely takes so much off of my plate for that. And then she edits my associate wedding galleries as well. So I edit those 20%, and then she edits the rest of them too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Victoria, we're coming up hour 38. Yeah. Is there any other advice you would like to share for maybe up and coming wedding photographers?
Yeah. First of all, I know we talked about like getting said no to and stuff like that. Yeah. Shoot a lot of things for free if you need to, or for very cheap when you're first starting out, just to build that portfolio. I think it's really important to learn a lot of the behind the scenes and like, learn your camera really well, learn how to work with people, and I still do things for free, like styled shoots that I really want in my portfolio. Sure. I'll do that for free. So there's nothing wrong with doing things for free. But yeah, when you start getting offered money, like don't be doing things for free all the time. Like you need to pay the bills. Another thing, I feel like I've heard this before, and I love this business advice in general, is don't take advice from people who aren't doing what you're doing.
Oh, man in the arena.
Yeah. It's just like, it's so smart because like, I know everyone in my life is so well-intentioned and they mean well for me. But like when I was first starting off, they were so scared that I wanted to be my own business owner and not fall into the norm of like getting a 9-to-5 and having a boss and stuff like that. And like, I remember my parents being like, you're going to have to work really hard. Like you're going to have to like set aside money for savings, and you're going to have to pay for your own health insurance. And they're very well intentioned in their fears. And
so now that you've made it,
and they're so proud, like they're so proud and they're so amazed. But like, I feel like I just like wanted it bad enough. Right. And I took advice instead of being like, I don't know, not that my parents gave bad advice, but like other people just being like, oh, like, you're not going to make it if you can't do this or whatever. It's just like, well, you're not doing what I want to be doing. Like I want to be on the other end of this or whatever it is. So just take advice from people who have already done what you want to do, because they know the road, and they can give you actual meaningful, useful advice rather than just being like, oh, well, you should have a good resume. I've never used a resume. Like other than my one corporate job, I have never used a resume. Like that advice means nothing to me as an entrepreneur.
Do you think you'll ever go back to the 9-to-5?
No, not a desk job. I think, like I said, like maybe being an interior designer and like that kind of thing. But not that that's exactly what I want to do, but like something within a creative and people realm I would love to do. I can't do a desk job and just sit there and like push paper. I can't. The office is not my lifestyle. But so
that's awesome. That's good advice.
Yeah, and also just don't be afraid. I mean, like the whole reason I'm on this podcast is because I posted saying I want to get on a podcast. That's a goal. And look at us now. Like, I mean, don't be afraid to like talk about your dreams, because it can be scary when they're baby ideas, and one negative comment could tear you down.
Oh yeah.
But if you want it bad enough and you know you can do it, like don't be afraid to talk about it, because again, the more I talked about like, oh, I'm a wedding photographer, I'm a photographer, I shoot this, the more people will see you as that, and then they'll refer you. Like that's how I got that word of mouth. So.
Manifesting. Yeah.
I am so big on manifesting, affirmations, and gratitude. So that is something
Speak it into existence
every day. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, where can people find you, Victoria?
They can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Victoria Saint Martin. And that's Saint Martin all spelled out SaintMartin. Yeah. My website, victoriasaintmartinphotography.com. And you can also find Cultivate on Facebook. It's Cultivate Education if you want to join the community and the photographer workspace. I run that with Mackenzie Bigliazzi as well. Her Instagram handle's about the same thing. It's her name. Yeah. So yeah, just find us on there, and we're excited to connect with you. Okay. Well, Victoria, thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Yeah. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.